Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. I'm assuming Elaine Bloom in South Australia. It can't be afternoon there. Nice of you to join us. I don't think I've seen that name before, so welcome if it's your first time. Can you all hear me okay? I'm assuming you can. Hi Andrea, hi Vanessa, hi Helen, hi Deborah. Watching on Facebook. Hi Connie, hi Katie. Yes, I'm fine, thank you. No, me neither, and I should really, because it's one of my absolute favourites. Hi Bonnie. Hi Kathy. Hi Marion. Hi Hazel. Hi Margaret. Hi Josephine. Hi Doreen. Hi Sue. Hi Sue. Hi Carol. 11:30 Monday night. Wow. So I'm keeping you up then, Elaine. Hi Val. Hi Catherine. Thank you, Connie. Hi Elizabeth. I don't think I've seen that name before either. So again, welcome if it's your first time. It's nice to see so many new faces. Hi Suzanne. Hi Adrienne. Thank you, Andrea. Hi Jean. Okay, there's quite a few of you here, so we'll make a start. Wet and windy in Cheshire. Yeah, much the same here, Catherine, to be fair. I haven't got my window open today, I can tell you. Hi Tina. Right, made a card in this purple colour. It's actually mainly pink, so to be honest, mainly shocking pink, but we'll get to that in a little while. Hello Mavis. Don't think I've seen that name either, so welcome if it's your first time. Hope you enjoy it. Hi Jacqueline. Hi Margaret. Hi Linda. Okay, let's make a start then. So let me just, I hope you've all had your email this morning for the brand new pick of the week. And as you can see, it's the magnetic mat, which is obviously why I'm using it today. And the magnetic mat, and you also get 2 magnets which are free, so you're actually saving around about a tenner. I think it's £9.99. But this mat is just, it's just a cracking bit of kit. And you know, why not build, I know you're building your stash of products that you like to use, don't we all? But I do think having the right tools to do the right job is equally as important. So why not, especially when it's on such a great offer. Don't forget it's on all week and it will finish on Sunday night at midnight. So if you want one, I'd grab one. That offer is on until Sunday, unless it sells out, in which case you'll only get it till it sells out. Yeah, to buy the masking tape. It's one of those things, Katie, I've got to be honest, I don't use it a lot, but knowing I've got it there for when I do use it, and I am using it today, is a bonus. So I would say, whilst you might not use it every single time you craft, that time when you come to do something and think, I wish I got a bit of masking tape, and I'm not being funny, it's huge, it's going to last you forever and ever and ever. So you know, it's a good deal. I've used this quite a few times, and you can see how big the roll is. It's huge. You're not gonna run out for a long time. Trust me. So I would say if you can afford it, get it, because it's just one of those things that is a really good to have in your stash. If you don't have it, you'll miss it. Okay. So I'm going to take this down, and then I'm just going to pop you a list of what I've used today. Okay, so I've used the low tack masking tape, and this is brilliant. So you know, as I say, one of those things that you'll wish you'd got if you haven't got it. All right. I'm also using one of the mini sentiments stamp sets. I'm using the best one here. The card that I've done has got 1 sentiment on it. The card I'm doing today is going to use a different sentiment. Okay, these are such a beautiful collection of stamps. Again, one of those things that you might not use every day, but when you're making one of those cards that isn't a happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy Christmas, these are brilliant because these cover virtually every eventuality. Okay, so worth bearing in mind, and they're a good deal as well. So I'm also using the layering stencils for the Wildflower Spray, and as I said in my little banner, this has to be one of my all-time favourite sets. I know I say that a lot, but for me this one is right up there. There's a few, but this was the one that I used to send a card to the king for his coronation. Oh, no, not for his coronation, for when the Queen died. And I just had to use this. So I've used the stencils. I haven't used the embossing folder, but I have used the die. And I've only used the die to cut my masking tape. Okay, so I haven't really used the embossing folder. I've also used the Essential Hessian, and that's in the background on my base card. No worries, Sandy, you're here now, aren't you? Hi, Natalia. So yeah, I'm using the Essential Hessian, and that's just to put some interest in the background of my card, and I'll show you that in a second. And I've used the Nested Stitch Bubble Squares to give me my card base, if you like. So I've got my card blank, and then my base card and my stenciled piece are going on top. And I've used the two largest stitched squares. I haven't used the bubbles on this occasion. Okay, so that's everything that I've used. Just made my stamps out of the way because I've already placed my stamps where I want them to be. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment in place first. Now if I just show you like it was in the photograph, obviously on my banner, but this is the card that we're working towards. Okay, so I haven't stuck any of this down because I wanted to do it all live, really. Okay, so that's where we're headed. Okay, so I'm going to stamp my sentiment first. Now this one I did on Lisa's white texture card, and the stenciling looks amazing. The only drawback with the texture card is when you're stamping a sentiment, because obviously with it being texture card, there's all those little layers, isn't there? There's little bits that won't catch the ink because the textured part is raised and flat. Do you know what I mean? There are little bits that won't pick up the ink. So in order to fill in where the ink missed, I've used one of the fine liners, the black one, and I've just gone over this with a black fine liner just to fill in those tiny little white specks, because otherwise it looks like your ink pad isn't working properly and you need to re-ink it or something. So I've just gone over that with a pen just to make it stand out and look nicer. Okay, so that's sort of where we're headed, but it's going to look a little bit different. So I'm using, for this one, I'm going to use Lisa's smooth white card. Okay, and I'm putting this up. I'm putting it down here. I've already put my marks on my mat. I want my mat tucked right up to the pegs and right against the corner of my Ultimate one. Okay, because this is the one with the stamping platform. So my sentiment is going here, and I've already put my stamps here, but I've changed the sentiment. I'm actually using "Have the best day ever" instead of what I used on the other one, which was "The best is yet to come." Okay, so I've changed the sentiment up a little bit. So I'm just going to use my black ink pad just to ink up my stamp. I'm doing it all in one go. If you think that the bigger stamp will stamp better and it'll miss ink on the smaller one, then do it in two parts. If you're happy to do it all in one go, then do it all in one go. It shouldn't really cause you a problem. So I'm just going to wipe that ink off there because I don't want it on my card. Okay, and then I'm going to pop this down here. I am just going to put my magnet over here so my card doesn't move. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment onto my card. And the reason I'm doing the sentiment first is because it will give me a guide where to place my stencils when I'm doing my stenciling. You don't have to do it this way around. You can do it the other way around, do your stenciling first and then put your sentiment down. But I just find this way it's just a little bit easier. It gives you a better guide. Okay, I'm happy with that. See, that's stamped really nicely because it's on really super smooth white cardstock. So I'll get rid of that because I don't need that again, I don't think. And I'm going to use my magnetic mat. Now, the reason I decided to use the mat, apart from it being the pick of the week, was that because I'm stenciling over the corners of this piece of card, if I used my Ultimate 2, which is what I would normally use just for stenciling, I'm going to have the border in the way. Let me show you what I mean. So if I want to stencil in the corner here, if I put it the right way, if I want to stencil in the corner here and I need to put my card here, it's going to be hanging over the frame of the Ultimate and you're going to end up creasing your card. Okay, so you don't want to do that. So the best thing to do is use the magnetic mat, because it's not going to matter if your card is hanging over the edge, is it? Because there's nothing to sort of crease. So that was my thinking anyway. So let's take our stencils. Now we've just got to work out where we want the stencil to sit on the corner of this card. So I'm lining my card up on the straight lines of the magnetic mat, so it's on the markings, and I know that if I've got these 3 points sitting that go through the middle of the corner, the lines go through the middle of the corner, I know that this side is going to be right as well, she said. Hopefully, just make sure that that is the right line. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Yeah, so count your lines, place your card so that the point of your card is on the same line and then on the middle line, and you'll know that this side then is level. Okay, so then I'm going to decide where I want my stencil, where I want my flowers to be. Now obviously I'm not going to be using the whole of the flower, am I? Because it's sort of hanging off the edge, and that's what I liked about this, was that I can use it several times, but it doesn't look like you've used the same thing several times. It just looks like a bunch of flowers, and I was just really happy with that. So you can see the flowers sitting over the edge. For me, there isn't quite enough of the flower on the card, so I'm going to move my card across to the next line and see if I'm happy. I'm going to move it. I think I want a little bit more. Let's see what we get if we move it another line. Right. Now I can line my stencil up with the markings on the mat, because obviously there's markings all the way around the mat in 4 different places. So you can line your stencil up and know that it's in the right place. All right. I am just going to tape this piece of card down just with a little bit of washi tape, because obviously I don't want it to move once I start. And you do need to just keep your hand on your stencil to stop the stencil moving, because obviously I'm going to put my magnets down, but there might be a tiny little bit of movement. So it's just one of those things that you just need to be aware of, because there's no pegs, so it's not going to hold your stencil as well as a peg system is. All right, so I'm just going to take that off and just put you the colours that I've used. Okay, and then we'll make a start with the stenciling. I'm just trying to decide whether I'm happy that it's in the middle, and I think I'm going to move it up one actually. Move it up to the next line and move that down. That's better. My flower is now sort of sitting more in the middle of that corner. Okay, so I'm going to use my magnets but I'm also going to be mindful of just not moving this stencil. All right, so we're going to make a start with the stenciling. I'm going to take my lids off here. And you can see I'm using Margarita and Green Sage for the leaves, and I'm using Shocking Pink and Sweet Violet for the main flowers. All right, so I'm going to use Margarita first. Now I'm using my Wonder brushes for this. I would normally use stencil brushes if I'm stenciling these sorts of stencils, but I don't want it to be particularly heavy. And sometimes with your stencil brushes, because they are a more condensed area, you're going to get a higher concentration of colour if you're not careful. So by using the Wonder brush, it's going to give me a softer covering of ink. That's the plan anyway. So we're going to start with the Margarita, and I'm going to go onto my... I'm not worried about ink on the magnetic mat, it'll wipe off because they're only blending inks, so I can wipe it off afterwards with a bit of soap and water or baby wipe or whatever you use in your crafting. Okay, so I'm coming on here reasonably gently, she said, having gone a little bit heavy there, but it'll be fine. It will be fine. So I'm coming on here with Margarita, and then before I take this off, I am going to go in and put some shading in with the Garden Sage. Okay, so go gently with this, because as I say, your stencil is more prone to moving with this magnetic mat than it is with your Ultimate 1 or 2. Okay, because there's no pegs on this, obviously. So I'm going to come in with the Garden Sage. I'm going to take a lot of the ink off before I come off this mylar into that Margarita, and it's really just to give it a little bit of interest at the bottom of those leaves where the shadow probably would be. Okay, so just... and it's reasonably quick. I mean, there are 6 stencils with this set, I think, but it is a reasonably quick set to do, and it's one of the most beautiful, effective sets, I feel, as well. It's probably why I like it. Okay, so I'm going to slide that off there. Now I'm going to do 2 more, obviously, because I need to do the other corners. I'm not worried about taking the ink off these stencils because I'm using the same colours. The only thing I will do on that first one is I will probably just wipe off some of the green, because obviously I'm using a dark green after a light green. So when I come to do the flower on the next corner, I'll want it light rather than dark. Okay, it all makes sense, honest. So put my magnets back on my stencil, take my Garden Sage, and I'm going reasonably light. You can see where I'm holding the brush. I'm holding the brush sort of quite a way back on the handle, which will give you a softer colouring, because I don't want a really heavy deep green on these. I just want it to be noticeable but still quite subtle. So I'm gonna lift it off, have a look, decide whether I like it, and then carry on, or just add a little bit more colour. No, I'm happy with that. So then we're coming in with number 3, and you can also, whilst you're lining it up with the circles on the magnetic mat, you can also line it up with the flowers that are already, the leaves that I've already done, because you'll see where they're sort of sitting behind that mylar. So that will help you as well. It really is an easy thing to do. So I'm coming in here with Shocking Pink. Again, I want it to be reasonably soft, so I'm not going too heavy on this card. I'm holding the brush a reasonable sort of way down the handle, because whilst I want colour, I don't want it to be really, this shocking pink is a very, very bright pink, and I don't want that on this first layer. I want it to be reasonably subtle. And all three of these are going to look slightly different. The three that I did on my piece that I've prepped, if I show you, do look slightly different. So like this one here, you can see I went really sort of quite heavy down here with this shading, but then on these two, I think I changed the colour actually, and these two look quite different to this one. But that's fine, because, you know, flowers in nature aren't exactly the same, are they? Even on the same bush. So, you know, never worry about using the same stencil on one card and the colours being slightly different. It won't matter. And if somebody says it does, then don't send them another card. Let me just make sure I'm not missing too many of your comments. Right, so that's my first layer. Now, you know me, and Claire I think is much the same. I do like to put some shading on sometimes. I'm not going to bother with this because I've got two others to do, so I don't want to spend a huge amount of time sort of fiddling about with extra bits of shading. But if you want to, of course you can. You'll have loads more time than I've got, so, you know, go with the flow, as it were. Now you see I did go quite heavy there, didn't I? But it really won't matter. As I said, all your flowers will look different on each time you use the stencils, so don't worry about it. It'll be fine. So we're on number 4 already. Going with number 5. Line it up on those circles. And again, you can see where it's sort of going by looking through onto the card through the mylar. So you should still be able to line it up, even though you've got no pegs. So I'm coming in here with Sweet Violet, and again, not too heavy. Now this piece of mylar here, on this middle flower, on the middle of this big flower here, is only attached in one place. So you need to be a little bit careful, because you don't want to move it, and it will move if you sort of go in like a bullet gate. It will move and then it'll spoil the effect. So just hang on to it with, like I'm doing with my fingernail, so that it doesn't move while you're adding your ink through, and just take it a little bit slower. Okay, so that's number 5. And then lastly, we're just going to put the centre in that flower. Just move that out of the way. Now on my original card, I used a green first and I didn't like it, so I went over it with purple, and it turned it a really sort of, I don't know, I didn't like the colour, so I've just gone with purple on this occasion. Alright, so we've done our first flower. Now obviously we've got to turn the card round, but before I turn the card round, I'm going to put my mask on. Okay, so this is the mask that I cut using the die. So I just need to peel the top off, which will be reasonably easy. And obviously there's some sort of fiddly bits on here, so just be careful how you take the backing off. And then all you need to do is line up your mask with what you've already inked down here. Alright, so taking your time, line your mask up with what you've already put down on that card, and that will cover up what you've already inked. Okay, so just don't press it down too hard. All you want is something that's going to sit there and not lift, really. Okay, so then we're going to do the other corners. So again, I'm just going to line my card up, go there and there, I'm just going to take my first stencil, put my first stencil over the top and just see where my flower is sitting. So I need to come further across because again, excuse me, I want that flower sitting on the corner, but I don't want any white space here. So we go in there. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's well worth it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just make sure that you've got it on the same line so that you know your card is level. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Now I can use the mask to stick my card down on my, don't think that's level actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, it is. Just doesn't look level. Crazy, isn't it? Right, so I'm going to put my magnets back on there and we're going to go again. Same colours. Actually, I might just, before I put that down, take some of that ink off there because I don't want that dark ink in the centre because I want the margarita to go down first. So just take a little bit of that garden sage off because it is quite a dark green and we don't want to get dark green in our margarita because otherwise it's going to mess the colour up. So go back, put my stencil down, line it up with the circles, oops, and put my magnets on top and then go again. So we're going to go in with margarita, and what that mask is going to do is going to allow you to add your ink to this set of leaves and it's just going to look like one flower is sitting in front of the other, which is what you want. You don't want to see leaves that overlap because it'll just spoil the effect. So you just want to go in with your colours, go in with my garden sage just on the centre, come out from the centre into that margarita. They're not going to look exactly the same as the other one because they're not going to be sitting in exactly the same place, but that doesn't matter. All you're after really is the effect of flowers around three corners, or however many corners you want to use. And you're just after the effect of a bunch of flowers really. So that's number one. And number two. And line it up, put my magnets back, go in with my garden sage and reasonably lightly. See, I can see that this one on this corner is in a different position to the first one that I did, but it's absolutely fine. It just adds to the effect, I feel, in my opinion. It's just a really cool effect. Just to have flowers in three different corners, which you wouldn't be able to do using your Ultimate 1 or 2, to be honest. So I'll slide that one out of there, happy with that. Go in with number 3, and then when we've done this one, we've just got that third flower to do. But because the third flower is over here, I don't need to move this mask, I can just leave it in place and it will protect the stenciling that I do from the other side. Don't do what I've just done. Make sure your stencil's sitting on top of your card and doesn't slide underneath like what mine just did. Okay, so we'll go back with that shocking pink and just fill in these apertures on here. And it doesn't matter if your going, it's like you can see your mask through. That doesn't matter, just carry on. It's not going to make any difference. All you're going to see is the bits that you want to see. It'll make sense when I take it all off, promise. Okay, so that's that flower, that layer rather. Come back with number 4. Line it up. Just make sure that your little pieces on these stencils just don't catch underneath your card. So just go in, like place it on top, don't sort of try and slide it into place. Now I can see that I've got ink on the back of this stencil, so I'm just hoping it doesn't appear on the card. Just keep your fingers crossed. So I'm coming back in here with that shocking pink. And you're all right going sort of in circular motions on this one, because it's not, I don't think it's going to lift any of these little pieces. Whilst they're small, they're not too small. No, we're all right. Haven't got any ink on there, so that's good. So come in with number 5, and again we're going in with the purple on here, so we just need to bear in mind that that will lift if we're not careful. So I'm going to go in slowly. We're going to go with our stencil brush, and we're just going to hold this in place. I'm going to come this side, and then I'm going to hold it in place so that I can do the other side. And once you've done that, you can let it go. Okay, so it is reasonably quick, and that's the beauty of these stencils. You know, they can make you look like a fantastic artist, even if you're not. And like we always say, your first one will be your worst one. So maybe do one on a piece of scrap paper first. You don't have to, but if you've got any concerns and you want to see where any sort of like little problems might arise, do it on a piece of scrap card first, and then give it a go with your proper card. Okay, I'm not going to take this off because I want to leave it in place. So I've done that stenciling, now I want to do this side. All right, so I'll take that off there because that will be in the way, and then we're just going to work out where to put it on the other side to get the flower in the right place. So we'll go back to stencil 1. Again, I'm going to take off that dark green in the middle so that I'm not contaminating that margarita, because they are quite different colours. So just take that off there, dry it off, and then we can decide where we want this third flower. Okay, so really lining it up is what takes you the time, but I think it's worth it. When you see the finished card, I think you will agree that it is well worth the effort. So I think that's about right. Should I go a little bit higher? I'll go a little bit higher because I want the flower to be in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Okay, so again, I can use that mask just to stick my card down. I can line up my stencil with those circles and go again for the last time. So again, in there with that margarita. I do love this colour. Have I said that before? I do love this colour. Tacky tapies. Yeah, absolutely, Adrienne. It has so many different uses. It's just, I ummed and ahed about buying it, have to be honest, and thought, am I going to use it? But I am so glad I bought it, because, as I say, when you haven't got it and you suddenly think, oh, I could just do with, that's when you'll realise, actually, I should have just jumped in and bought it. because it'll always come in useful for loads of different things. So again, I'm coming in with this garden sage off the mylar, just on the edges of those leaves, just to give that little bit of shading. I do love doing this. But don't forget to sort of blot your ink onto the stencil first. Otherwise you'll come in and you'll be too heavy and it won't look right. And then you'll spoil it. And you don't want to do that after you've done 2 other corners of flowers, do you really? Okay, so that's number 1. Done. We're coming in with number 2. Line it up. And again, like I say, you can see where the stencil needs to be just by looking through the stencil. You can usually see where you need to line it up. So use the holes, but check the mylar at the same time, and you should be fine. So again, reasonably light, just want some little detail in those veins. Do all the bits that you can see, just in case you're sort of not going over the mask, or you're going over the mask. It won't matter that you're putting ink onto the mask. What you want to make sure of is that you've got all your ink in the right place. So more is better on this occasion. Take that one off. I'm liking this a lot. Okay, so number 3. Again, we're coming back to that main flower. And again, you can see where you need to line the flower up. So if you're not 100% on your circles, so long as you can't see any green through here, which I don't think I can. And to be honest, even if you can, I really don't think it's going to matter. You know, you're going to have to look at this with a fine tooth comb to sort of look for errors. And if people are prepared to look that closely for errors, they don't deserve your handmade card. So again, shocking pink, not too heavy, just enough to give a really nice coverage on that card. And like I say, if you want to add any shade into this before you take this stencil off, you can do. I'm not going to, just for time really, because I've done 3 lots of stenciling, so it does take a little bit more time. But you can add shading if you really want to. Okay, so then we're going to put in the veins on all those petals, and again I'm coming in with that shocking pink, a little bit heavier this time. And if you wanted to use your stencil brush on this piece, then of course you can do. That will give you a sort of a more concentrated colour. So if you want it to really stand out, then use your stencil brush as opposed to your wonder brush. But for me, doing this was the effect I wanted, sort of a softer colour. So that's why I've gone with the wonder brushes. Either way, it'll still look amazing. So on to number 5, just this one and that last little centre to do. Line that up. Come in with the purple. Again, start off light, you can always add more. I'm going to do all the bits around the edge first and then do that bit last. So just filling in, put my finger on that. Just to make sure that that little bit in the middle doesn't move. And then you just need to add the final centerpiece in the center. I'm not going to use my magnets for this. Just add that last little bit in the center, like so. And there you go. So let's just put the lids on here. I'm not watching many of your comments, so I apologise if I've missed any questions. Yeah, I love stenciling on texture cards, so but when it comes to stamping with a sentiment stamp particularly, it can miss bits for obvious reasons. It's not because the stamp's no good or your ink's no good or you're no good. It's just the fact that it's a textured card. So I'm slowly going to peel this off here, because you don't want to pull this off too quickly and ruin everything you've just done. So I'm going to lift it a bit at a time. I'm not worried if this tears or whatever, because I've cut two, so I've got another one if I want to use another one. So just peel it back slowly. I'm going to use my tweezers just to lift that bit up. There, that's better. I could hear it tearing the masking tape, but just take your time, peel it back slowly to reveal your beautiful handiwork underneath. But please don't just yank it off. You know, it comes off beautifully, but you know, you've been leaning on it, you've been putting pressure on it, so just take your time, bit at a time, and it will be absolutely fine, like so. Stick that on my desk out the way. Okay, so there you go. So you've got your 3 flowers. There's no overlap of leaves, and where they do overlap, there isn't ink over ink. Are you with me? So that's what I mean when I say I don't want it to overlap. There is, of course, overlapping, but not overlapping that you can see, not merging of inks where there shouldn't be. And that's what I love about masking. So you've got your 3 flowers there, and you haven't bent your card. Your magnetic mat has worked exactly as you want it to work. It's just a great bit of kit. So my original thought was to put it on a 7x7 card, and when I put it down, you'll see what I mean. I put the main piece down, and then I put the piece down that I'd stenciled, and I held it up, and I thought, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. I mean, it looks okay, don't get me wrong, it looks okay, but I just feel like it needs something else. Okay, so I didn't put it on a 7x7, I went for an 8x8. And you can see here that I've done some stenciling in the background. If I lift it up a bit, you can probably see it better. Now you can see that there's sort of a halo of ink around the edge of the stencil on both parts. I've put it down in different angles, all right? So what I did was cut out the essential Hessian with the die, cut it out of the middle of a piece of card. So if you want this halo round the edge, you would just place your piece of card that you've cut and using it as your stencil, place it on your card, and then just using whatever ink there is on your brush, just come over the edges of that piece of card, which is then going to give you your halo. All right, if you don't want a halo and you just want this, then put it back in the piece of card you cut it from, and then when you put it down on your card and you brush through it, you're only going to get this bit. But I prefer it with a halo around it, so that's why I've done mine that way. But there are 2 ways you can do it. It's personal preference. Personally, I like it like this. Now I did think, should I do all 4 corners? But to be honest, I think if I do all 4 corners, it will be too much. And I don't want the background to overpower the foreground. Okay, so I've only done 2 corners, and I've chosen not to do the corner with the sentiment on, so that nothing detracts from that sentiment. Are you with me? So that's how it's going to look on the card, and I think, personally, I think it sits better on an 8x8, and it looks a better card than trying to squash it down onto a 7x7. No worries, Anne. onto a 7x7, I just think it loses something. Okay, so this is an 8x8. This is the largest square from the bubble squares, and then this one is the next one down. So I think this is probably 6.5 square, this particular piece. So that one's going to be slightly smaller. But I think by putting it onto a bigger card, it adds to the quality look of the card. And I'm not just saying that because it's my card. I just think generally, I think it would look better on a larger card. If you're going to do it on a 7x7, then use the smaller squares. Obviously, you won't get as much of the flower on using smaller squares, but that's personal preference as well. So I've 3D'd the base, but I'm just going to add this one flat, I think. Just for time, really. You're not the only one that asks. I don't mind who asks and how many times they ask. So I really don't mind. Okay, so let's just put this down. I'm using Lisa's fabulous tacky glue because, as I've said before, I don't use anything else these days because this just does everything I want it to. And I know that once I've put my pieces down using this, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm just going to place this down on here like so. Just make sure I get it in the middle. It's in the middle. Don't want it to look wonky. And then just to finish the flowers off, I am just going to add 3 little pink pearls. They're not big enough to actually fill the whole of this piece. So I'm just going to place the pearl sort of where there is a big enough gap, if you like. So these are very pale pink, but I think they just finish it off beautifully. Like so. So it's not filling that gap, it's just adding a little something to the card. Okay, so that was the one I've done today, and then that was the one I did yesterday. So I don't know whether, if I hold this up, it'll probably go out of focus, but I don't know whether you can see what I mean about the texture. If you're stamping onto textured card, in fact, have I got a piece that I can show you? Probably not. Oh well. There we go. So if I use this texture card and use my stamping platform, I'm going to use the same sentiment. Let's just move that out of the way. If I use the same sentiment, put this down here, and then ink that sentiment up, you will see what I mean. Now bear in mind this is only one inking. I would do two or three inkings so that I knew I was getting plenty of ink. But when I when I stamp this down here, no matter how much pressure I put on this, because this is a textured card, you're not going to get a smooth stamped finish like you will on extra smooth card. Bear in mind this is only one inking. You see what I mean? So that's on smooth card, that's on textured card. Can you see the difference? So all I've done on this one is use that fine liner. Any sort of black fine liner will do, but I've used Lisa's fine liner pens, and I've re-inked it. I've stamped it again. In fact, I think I did it about 3 times, and then went over the little gaps. So you can see like here and here. And this is just purely and simply the texture on the card. So it's nothing you're doing wrong. It's nothing to do with the stamp. It's nothing to do with your ink pad. It's purely and simply the fact that you're stamping onto texture card. Okay, so the extra smooth, super smooth cardstock when you're stamping sentiments is the best, in my opinion. But just to show you, you can get round it and it will still look great, providing you've got a steady hand. If you haven't got a steady hand, that's not going to work, because you're going to end up possibly coming outside the stamped line. So you just have to be careful. So you need to take your time with that, but it can be done. Okay, so I'm going to leave that with you there. I'm really happy with that. I really like that. In fact, I probably like that one better than that one, because I think it's got more colour in it than this one. And whilst I wanted it to be sort of soft and subtle colours, that one's maybe a bit too subtle. But it's still nice, and I'll still put it onto a card and make a card out of it. I just prefer that one. Okay, so there you go. That is my card for today. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, stenciling on textured card gives a beautiful, beautiful finish. Stamping with a sentiment is a totally different kettle of fish. But didn't notice that. Don't worry, Elizabeth. Don't worry, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm going to leave that with you there, and I will be back on Thursday. Not sure what I'm doing yet, but I will be back on Thursday. Don't forget to join Claire tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and look out for any little lives that Lisa pops in with, because she just appears out of nowhere. So I'm hoping it goes really, really well for her. I'm sure it will. No reason to think any other way. The small fonts seem to stamp okay on the second time. Okay. Perhaps just different stamps do it in different ways, but I just couldn't get a solid finish on the texture card with these stamps at all. So different card gives different effects. So, you know, just don't worry about it. Just try something different. And if you do stamp it and you make a mess of it, then stamp it on a different card, cut it out in a circle or an oval and put it over the top. Don't waste all your stenciling. There is always a way around it. Okay, so I'll love you and leave you. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you all on Thursday. So take care, everybody. Bye for now.